The Minister is expected to speak in Parliament later today after he confirmed that a number of attack drones fired by Iran towards Israel had been shot down by RAF jets.
And Rishi Sunak joined G7 leaders in condemning what he described as Iran's reckless attack on Israel over the weekend. Well, we're joined now live on Breakfast by the Foreign Secretary, Lord Cameron. Good morning to you. Thank you for your time.
Good morning.
For our viewers waking up this Monday morning who've seen the headlines over the weekend, how worried should they be about the situation in the Middle East right now?
Well, we're living in a very dangerous world. We know that because of what's happening in Ukraine, what's happening in the Middle East and elsewhere. And what Iran did was a very, very dangerous act in an already dangerous world. And your report was completely right. But when we think about the 301 weapons that were fired at Israel, they weren't all drones. There were 110 ballistic missiles. There were 43 cruise missiles. This was a very significant attack. But fortunately, it was a failure because of the brave action of Israeli defences and what the Americans did and our limited role, which I can come on to. And so, in many ways, Iran has suffered a double defeat, the almost complete failure of their attack. And also, by making this attack, they've revealed to the world their true nature as the malign influence in the region.
Israel is warning of a significant response to that attack. Given the scale of what they have faced, would that be justified from Israel?
Well, I think they're perfectly justified to think they should respond because they have been attacked. But we are urging them as friends to think with head as well as heart, to be smart as well as tough, and to recognise Iran suffered this defeat because the attack was a failure. The world can see what a malign influence they are. And I think that the right thing to do is not to escalate. But as President Biden has put it, to sort of take the win, as it were, and then let's focus the world's attention onto Hamas, who are still holding those hostages, including British nationals. They've been offered a deal by Israel to release many, many prisoners out of Israeli prisons and to have a pause in the fighting in Gaza. And Hamas should take that deal. They're the only reason why this fighting continues. So de-escalation, trying to calm the situation, is what we're trying to do. But I totally understand ordinary Israelis waking up this morning and thinking we should respond because we've been attacked. But we've got to be smart as well as tough.
So when you urge Israel to show restraint at the moment, what does restraint look like?
Well, I think it means not having another wave of attacks and focusing instead in putting the pressure on Hamas to release the hostages, have the pause of fighting in Gaza. Then we can flood aid into Gaza, get the hostages home after over 6 months of awful captivity, and try and de-escalate the situation while getting the whole world to recognise what a malign influence Iran is in the region and looking at sanctions and other pressure that can be put on Iran in order to get them to desist from further such attacks against Israel, but also to rein in their proxies, because of course Iran is responsible for Hamas in Gaza, they're responsible for the Houthis in Yemen, they're responsible for Hezbollah in Lebanon. They are the malign influence, but we need to de-escalate the situation rather than see further conflict.
The thing is, over the last few weeks, you've urged Israel to show restraint in Gaza, and a lot of people think that doesn't really appear to have happened. You warned Iran not to carry out any attacks, and now we know that has happened. How much influence how much influence do you really have in this situation?
Well, I would point to one situation which is right from the beginning. We've talked about the importance of getting aid into Gaza. And I was attacked for being too aggressive about this, but we've now seen, thanks in large part to what the Americans have said, but we have now seen Israel saying we're going to allow more aid into Gaza, 500 trucks a day, opening the port of Ashdod, opening times lasting longer, and proper deconfliction so aid can move around Gaza. That is somewhere where Britain has really focused our effort. We've trebled our aid budget into Gaza. We've helped to save many lives, to feed many people, to provide food, medicine and shelter, and we should keep up with that. And I think Britain has had an influence there. I wouldn't overstate what we did on Saturday night, but nonetheless we did provide aeroplanes to backfill for the Americans on the operation we jointly do to suppress ISIL, Daesh in Iraq and Syria. And that allowed America to do more to protect Israel from attack. But at the same time, we said to our pilots that if there were drones or missiles coming in from where they were, they should shoot them down, and they did. And that's a testament to their skill, to their brilliance, to their bravery, and we should be very proud of them.
You seem to be sort of downplaying the UK's involvement over the weekend, but if there was another attack on Israel by Iran, would the UK expect to play a similar role again?
Well, we hope there won't be one, and the Iranians have said there won't be one, but we were asked by the Americans to assist. We thought that was sensible because we were helping them to do more, but also providing part of the shield ourselves, and our pilots shot down a number of drones as they came in from those areas, and that was the right thing to do. We were trying to stop escalation. An attack by Iran onto Israel, a state-on-state attack, would have been a huge escalation. And it is worth reflecting on the scale. I think it was bigger than many people expected in terms of the 301 weapons that were flown by Iran and its proxies into Israel. It could have resulted in thousands of casualties, including civilian casualties, if it hadn't been the almost total failure it was, because the Israelis and the Americans, and to a small extent us, were successful in shooting these things down.
The United States, President Biden, have said to Israel, look, if you take any retaliatory action now against Iran, we will not be part of that. Is the UK saying the same?
What we're saying is we don't think they should take escalatory action. We totally respect, as an independent sovereign state that's been attacked, they have every right to consider how they respond, but we're urging them to think with head as well as heart, and to think what's best for their security in the region in terms of not escalating this conflict. And so we don't think that they should go ahead with such action. But I fully understand the difficulty of making that argument. And whenever you're talking to another country about things they should or shouldn't do, you must respect their independence, their sovereignty, and the sense they have about how they best protect their people. But I think what Saturday night proved is they can protect their people, and the United States is there, as Biden said, giving them that ironclad support, and we can play a role in helping the United States.
But you're not ruling out the possibility that the UK might join retaliatory action on Iran should Israel choose to do it, even if you don't want it to happen?
That's not what I said. I said we don't think escalatory action should take part. That's our very, very clear view. We've communicated that to the Israelis. The point I was making is just, I think it's important to be respectful on these occasions. A country has had a massive attack from a dangerous and malign actor in the region. They are considering, the Israeli cabinet has been meeting already to consider that. Our advice is don't retaliate. Take the win. Recognise Iran has suffered a double defeat. Defeat as almost all their weapons were shot down, and defeat because the world can now see their true nature. That the right thing to do is to pivot now and look at Hamas and say they must release the hostages. So we wouldn't be supporting retaliatory action, but we're respectful of other countries.
Labour have told us here on Breakfast this morning that they want to see more sanctions on Iran. Is that something that you and the government would consider?
Yes, absolutely. We already have 400 sanctions on Iran. We put in place a whole new sanctions regime at the end of last year, which is proving very effective. We've sanctioned the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, in its entirety, and we'll continue to look at what further steps we can do. I think there is an opportunity, and I'm sure the Prime Minister will talk about this in his statement to the House of Commons, to try and work very closely with our partners in the G7. All these things are more effective if countries can act together. I think Britain, in many ways, has been at the sort of sharp end, has been the most keen on sanctions and on pressure and on turning up the heat, recognising, as I said in the very first interview I gave as Foreign Secretary, that Iran is the malign actor in the region. But it's best if we can do these things together.
Some countries, including France, the Netherlands, are changing their advice for their citizens as far as travelling to the Middle East is concerned. Are you expecting some movement on that as far as UK citizens?
We keep ours permanently under review, and I would urge anyone who's travelling to look at the Foreign Office website, and the travel advice is set out there very clearly. We haven't made a new alteration on travel advice to Israel, but people should look very carefully. We keep it under review, by the hour. And often with countries, we have different advice for different parts of the country and different forms of travel. So that's the best thing to do.
Lord Cameron, Foreign Secretary, thank you for joining us here on BBC.
Thank you.